Honor of the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, one individual. Go to citizen and parent comments. Anything? None? We'll go to items of community interest. Mr. Sasser. Start with the roll tide.
Without comment. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I want to go over a couple of things here coming up in the next week. Starting off this Friday is the Lone Star Legislative Report. I got your RSVPs for that, so thanks so much. That's going to be, again, this Friday at 11 a.m. at the Texas Motor Speedway. Should be well attended by town staff and council, so that's going to be a really informative meeting there on Friday. The next Planning and Zoning meeting, scheduled for October 17th, has been canceled. The Chamber of Commerce Business Builder, that's coming up on Wednesday, October 18th at 8 a.m. That's going to be right down the street at the Marriott. I got your RSVPs for that as well, so thanks so much. And then, of course, Monster Mash, a big event at the Westlake Academy campus. That's going to be Saturday, October 21st from 5 to 7:30. Going to be a lot of ghouls and goblins there. So that should be a lot of fun for not just the Academy folks, but for the town of Westlake as well. Other items of note, want to give a quick thanks to everyone who pitched in for the World Teacher Day. That was on October 5th of last week. It was really cool. We got a bunch of people to tie ribbons around campus in honor of our teachers and all the hard work that they put in on a day-to-day basis for our students. We had, speaking of students, we had a lot of students who volunteered their time after school to tie the ribbons around, so that was really nice. And then, of course, the HOC provided food for the teachers and staff, which was really cool. And then finally, I wanted to talk about the event that happened this past Saturday, the fall cleanup. It just happened right here, 1400 Solana. We had it was very successful. This year we had an added donation station to our regular lineup to kind of help increase the amount of opportunities for people to drop their things off during the spring cleanup situation. Here's something that's really cool. I mean, we talked about the students who donated their time during the World Teacher Day, but they also came out and earned some hours, community service hours, for to take part in the event as well. So a lot of students from the academy. We had the Westlake Academy Foundation was also out there helping out. So that was really cool. So a special thank you to Shelley, Christine, and the entire Westlake Academy Foundation for all of their hard work and for participating in this. We had about 25 vehicles come by. Some came by 2 and 3 times, which is great, with carloads full of stuff, which was huge. The big hit certainly was the Crud Cruiser. That was the most popular. So residents dropped off batteries, oils, gasoline, old paint, that kind of thing. So it was a big success. Couple things that I wanted to point out here. So not only was it an opportunity for folks to clean out their garages and under their sinks, but it was a great opportunity to donate items as well, much needed items. So, for instance, the Stepping Stones Boutique. We collected about 12 to 15 coats donated to support kids in crisis during this event, and they were dropped off at the location here right down the street in Keller. And then also the community storehouse got about 10 to 12 bags of clothing, assorted books, toys, sporting goods, home decor, baby items, electronics, all kinds of great things to support local families. So it was much more than just the event that we had planned in the past, but it really went a long way to help families and kids in need. So that was great. And so certainly we want to point out all of Diana's hard work for putting this together and helping us promote it and getting this all together. It was a fine event. And those are your items of community interest.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to reports. We'll start off with F1 23-262, receive an update from Hugo's Restaurant representative. Wade, he's right over there.
Good evening, Mayor Council. Mark Campbell with Hugo's Invitados is actually here tonight to talk a little bit about the restaurant. Once he's finished and you may have some questions for him, I just wanted to circle back a little bit on the elevation of the restaurant and the building permit that is currently here with the town. So with that, I'll invite Mark up to talk a little bit about the restaurant, and we'll go from there.
Good evening. Again, Mark Campbell with Hugo's Invitados, opening in Entrada targeting February opening. Plans are submitted to the city, waiting on approval for permitting, so for construction to begin immediately. We've been open, our Las Colinas location has been open 5 years last week, and basically the same menu concept will be coming to Westlake, slightly elevated, a few additional items will be coming on. Some of the time-sensitive pieces of this was the kitchen design, the extensive kitchen design, because it's the front of the house kitchen, so as you walk in, butt-jointed glass, kitchen fully revealed, and then we also have a catering kitchen as well. So that has been part of the slowdown on getting these plans submitted to the city, but now everything is submitted, so looking forward to getting things started so we could be opening very soon. Any questions I might be able to answer?
Mark, I'll just comment. We met earlier.
Yes.
I love your restaurant, and I've spent a lot of time
thank
at the
you.
one in Las Colinas. We are so excited that you guys are coming here. And sounds like February is the target date.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Excellent.
We are looking forward to being in Westlake. Thank you so much.
I just have one really quick question
Yes,
for
sir.
you. But thanks for presenting. I think we're all very excited to have a restaurant opening up in Entrada. My question is, just generally, how have you found, if you can be honest, working with Town of Westlake, developer? I mean, this has probably been a long process getting to where you are today.
You know, in comparison to where we've been, it's been enlightening. It's been very favorable. And I'm not just saying that in front of you here. I'm saying it's, we've been in other cities. We've dealt with other challenges, and this has been fairly easy to work with.
Any other major hurdles you can see that could potentially detract from opening in February, or do you think everything is?
No, sir. I mean, supply
much on
chain's been
target.
pretty much lifted.
Good.
You know, equipment has been sourced. Training has been started. So, no, I can't foresee anything. Our contractors are anxiously waiting to get started. So, you know, knock on wood, I cannot foresee anything
Awesome.
happening.
Are you going to have valet parking? Is that how you're doing your parking?
Yes, sir. It'll be valley parking.
And then, what was the source of the delay? There was almost like an 8-month gap between when you first announced and I mean, I was just in there the other day. And
Sure. Primarily the kitchen design and layout. The kitchen design being one, but the catering kitchen being another. It's quite extensive. And so it's just a matter of sourcing that right equipment that's going to work for our menu. And so we wanted to, it's not one of those things you can, we messed that up. We need to scratch that and start over. When we open, we have to open and be ready. And it's a massive expense to build out a kitchen of that size. And we just want to make sure we're bringing in the right state-of-the-art equipment that can accommodate Hugo's and all the catering and the private events that we'll be hosting there.
okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Anything else? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
We're really looking forward to it.
Same here.
Mayor Ron would like to come forward and discuss a couple of the building site plan changes that they're asking and get some direction from council on that matter.
So what I wanted to go over with the council, since we were talking about Hugo's, and we got the updated elevations from them about a week and a half ago. So this is a good opportunity to bring this up to the council. Normally, before we amended the zoning probably about 4 years ago to allow for administrative approval of site plan changes, this would have required P&Z and council approval. However, I wanted to just bounce this off of council to make sure you don't have any issue with it. Because what Hugo's is proposing is, and you can see where the part of the site plan on your screens where it's hatched yellow on top and bottom, there's a breezeway there. And that's part of, this is the originally approved site plan that you're seeing this. And I'll shuttle to the next slide. You can see it on the left, the breezeway, and this is existing today. They would like to enclose this breezeway to add a little more square footage to the restaurant. And also on the back patio, they would like to enclose that yellow shaded area there as well, where you see some tables. Not fully enclosed, it'd be windows, you could see through it, or glass, but just it would have the effect of adding about 4,000 additional square feet to the total of 8,000 square feet existing for the restaurant. So Normally, this would have required a formal site plan amendment in the past. However, we can approve this administratively if council doesn't have any issues with it.
How are they going to do heating and cooling for that breezeway?
So they'll have to add, HVAC will be added to that area. So that they'll completely enclose it. And this is the elevation that is proposed that came with the building permit that shows it being enclosed
Okay.
on the top where the circle is. So basically become another window. And this is as it exists today. So in terms of architectural significance in doing this, you can still access the canal on either side. Does it change the character of the building? Yes, but is it a major change? Not necessarily. So this is something that we could go ahead and approve on the permit, which is under review now, and get the permit issued very quickly, or take this through for a more formal amendment through P&Z and council, which would obviously delay the project by a couple of months.
I'm for it.
Yeah, I'm relaxed. I mean, obviously, this changes the occupancy of the building itself and potentially, fire exits. Does this require a review by the fire department to make sure it conforms?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And they review all permits like this anyway,
it.
so
No issues raised by them, or that's still
no,
to
sir.
happen?
It falls within the existing code parameters, and we've already done a kind of a code review on it as well. So
Yeah.
it would just need to, once construction starts, obviously need to meet all the current
Does
code
it?
requirements.
So does this actually change the number of? Does it change the occupancy, the expected occupancy of the restaurant, or does it just convert what would have been outdoor tables to indoor tables?
It doesn't change the occupancy class for permitting. It just
Okay.
adds a little more floor area for seating to the building.
Can I just go back? One of the questions the mayor was asking earlier about, parking, and they'd be offering valet parking. Where are we on the parking at the moment in Entrada, and what capacity do we have, and will this kind of fit within that planned phasing in of it?
So for the restaurant row and also the reception hall, which is just to the left in the picture you see there,
Yeah.
they will all utilize the parking garage that's existing.
Yeah,
and there's about
okay.
450 spaces in that garage.
And that's what you'd expect capacity-wise per whatever the metric is for a restaurant?
It
Yeah,
should be able to
sufficient.
hold all the
Okay.
the traffic generated or parking generated by those uses.
Okay.
It would be a good problem to have if it didn't.
Yeah? We have plenty of problems, so.
Will this impair the other space? So there's another restaurant space to the side, right? And it's good for one restaurant, but the other restaurant in there, it limits their access just to the front door.
So there is a door access on either side once you go into the breezeway, but it doesn't take away. I mean, there's multiple points of access on all four sides actually, so it just takes away one of four sides.
Any other
Sounds
questions?
good.
That's it.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Need a formal vote, or you?
No, just I kind of wanted to get some general direction from the council. So, thank you.
All right, let's move on to F2 23-211, receive a report on Westlake Academy Parent-Student Survey results. Mr. Sasser?
Hello again, everybody. Right before the school year began, just a couple of months ago, the mayor expressed a desire to kind of get a sense of what's going on amongst Westlake Academy, the community, parents, students, and so forth. So came up with the idea to send out 3 brief surveys with 3 different groups that were going to be targeted, just to kind of get a sense of where we stand and the things that maybe we could improve moving forward. Those 3 surveys were sent to 1, parents of current students, 2, alumni from 2020 to 2023, and then finally the third for parents of former students from 20 to 23 who left for reasons other than graduation. We had a really good response, especially as we were wrapping up the summer. We had 272 people respond, which was a great way to really get a sense of the things that we're dealing with and what we're doing right and what we can improve on and so forth. We try to keep each of those surveys quite short. As you can see on the first parent survey, we only sent out 5 questions. On the alumni, we sent out 4. And then for the families who left, we only sent out 2 with obviously 2 very important questions there. So the very first one we sent out was to the current parents. The first question was, what grades are your children in? The good news is we had a good, fantastic cross-section across the board from K through 12. Each and every grade were represented there, with the most responses coming from 10th grade and the least coming from kindergarten. But like I said, it was nice to get a good cross-section of every single grade represented, so then we can really get a good sense of where we stand. The second question, why did you choose Westlake Academy? The overwhelming number one result was excellent academics and reputation. 87 people responded that way. Smaller class sizes was 2. Focus on the IB curriculum was 3. And I included these last 2, even though there weren't a whole lot of responses compared to the first 3, high rankings and college preparedness. I included those because while we are very excited about college or about high rankings, and obviously we're very proud of where we rank, it didn't really move the needle for a lot of the parents as far as why they chose, where there was several other reasons why they ranked higher. And then I included the college preparedness. This one's interesting because it only garnered 4 responses, but you'll see on this next slide that changes quite quickly.
John, quick question.
Sure.
If you go back to the previous slide, the answer choices, those are the ones that you offered them to choose from? Is that how it worked?
No, we just asked a simple question, why did you choose Westlake Academy, and left it up to them.
Oh, it's an open-ended question.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And you aggregated just like
Yes,
responses.
Sir. Yeah. Okay. So these were the most responded answers. So 87 people said academics and reputation and that kind of thing.
And is that 87 out of the total, sort of like roughly 30%?
Yeah, it's a total of the folks who were involved and answered questions in this particular survey. Yeah. So the third question we ask is, what are you hoping to get from your child's experience moving forward? Academic achievement was by far the top, and again, these were their answers. And then this is why this was interesting. Number 2 quickly jumped to strong college preparedness. So while one of the reasons, it was very rare that they said college preparedness is why they chose the academy. Once they got there, it became a very important thing for them, and it moved up the list quite quickly.
Sorry to interrupt. Was it simple enough to delineate between these 2 responses, because they're kind of linked, right? Academic achievement, getting into a good college, especially at high school. And if they answered in both cases, do you just count both answers?
No, so a lot of folks spoke specifically about college preparedness. So when they say academic achievement,
okay, that's really good to know. That's kind of why I'm asking that question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that jumped quite high. Continued IB mindset, ranked 3rd. The 4th was well-rounded growth and experience. And the 5th was expanded opportunities in classes, athletics, and extracurricular activities. Now, I included this one as well because you see this quite often in the answers moving forward, which we'll get into here in a minute. The 4th question for current parents, how can we improve your child's experience at Westlake Academy? 33, there you go, right there. Expanded athletics, classes, and extracurricular activities. So that was quite important. Better communication, 18 people responded that way. We wanted to break that out because, obviously communication is a broad topic and a broad subject. So they kind of broke down into 3 categories. They wanted better communication between teacher and parents about student progress and assignments. Another aspect was better communication, that they wanted it all in one place. And then the 3rd was overall transparency. They wanted that improved from the school as well. The next one was recruit and keep the best teachers, take more disciplinary action, and then finally improve the car line and parking was also in that. And Dr. White, yes, indeed, you can attest to that, and that too will come up a little bit later here.
Don, did you can you differentiate between the parents of current students and then those who actually left for non-graduation reasons? Because there's a big difference between saying, hey, I'd like to see the car line improve, but I'm still here, versus that final point where they're like, I'm no longer there, and this is the reason I left.
Yeah, so these are current parents.
These are all
who
current
still
parents.
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
sir.
I
see at the top.
Yeah, so to your point, the 3rd survey that we're going to talk about here in just a minute they're going to be the parents who left for reasons other than graduation, and they're going to talk about this. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when was this done again?
This was at the very end of the summer, right at the beginning of the school year. Yeah. And then the fifth and final question for current parents, can you provide us with feedback on your interactions with staff and counselors? Overwhelming, this is great news. It was mostly positive. 146 people said that it was all positive. They used words like warm and caring and very supportive. Only 27 responses were negative. Their criticisms were they felt that they were disregarded in their concerns. And better communications from teachers were some of the kind of the, if you want to talk about highlights from that. And then the third category was they had minimal interactions, but most said that even though they had minimal interactions with the staff and counselors, that it was mostly positive. So that's a good thing. Now to the second survey, and this was sent out to alumni from the years 2020 to 2023. So again, we had 4 years here, including the folks who just graduated, a good cross-section. We had responses from each and every one of the graduating classes, which was good. Because as you know, the last 4 years, it's very different school years from folks in 2020 to the ones who just graduated. So the second question we asked to alumni, what did you gain from your experience at Westlake Academy? 42% of those said positive relationships. 33% said better writing skills. And I want to expand on this because this is something that we have seen over the years that overwhelmingly has been an answer from graduates dating back to when I first started in 2017. I can specifically recall during the IB diploma ceremonies when the graduates who are now freshmen in college would come back and speak to the rising seniors. One thing that they would overwhelmingly say over and over again was, compared to our contemporaries and our classmates, we blow them away in writing. And that seems to be still the case here with this survey for our alumni. And then, of course, you have college preparedness as well that kind of goes along with that better writing skills. So clearly that is top of mind. Question 3 for our alumni, what did you like about your experience? Again, there's your small class size with a little more than a quarter saying that they enjoyed that. Teacher, staff, relationships, 26% were that. And then athletics for 16% said that was a major part of their positive experience. And then question 4 for our alumni, what would you have changed? There, once again, you see the wider variety of course offerings. A quarter said that. Addressing mental health issues was 17%, and improved traffic flow was 8%. So those were the 3 top ones that overwhelming, almost every single person said a variation of one of these 3. And then our final survey here is to, again, the former parents, the folks who left for reasons other than graduation. We asked 2 questions. The first one being, why did you originally choose Westlake Academy? IB education was the overwhelming top one. Class and school size, again, we keep seeing that. And academic reputation finished third with 10 responses. And this next one here is the one that I think we're all probably most interested in, and that's the question of why did you leave Westlake Academy? We had a myriad of responses here. More opportunities elsewhere. That's kind of a generic title because a lot of those feed into what we had been talking about in the other slides of different curriculum, different activities, different athletic opportunities, and those kinds of things. COVID-related issues, again, these were folks who left between 2020 and 2023, so we had a lot of COVID remarks, as you can imagine. Lack of staff support was one of the things that they mentioned. Toxic environment, that could mean a lot of different things. That could mean they point out potential in bullying, not getting mental health support. It could be, cliques within the school, those types of things are some of the reasons they cited as, quote, toxic environment. Academic challenges, perhaps the curriculum was just a little too difficult for them, so they decided to move on. And then just 5 relocated out of the area. So the main takeaways here is our thoughts are the next steps. We should probably send this to every single person on the leadership team as well as the board of trustees for analysis. You can kind of break down every single one of the answers and get a better sense of what folks are saying. And that way we can determine what can be done and improve in all of those aspects. And then, of course, analyze why families left and what can be done to reduce that number moving forward. Our recommendations, perform exit interviews with each family and graduating student. this is going to help a lot, I think, if we take that time to make those calls as they leave, because then we can get more detailed answers in real time. We're not asking somebody from 2023 why they left or what they enjoyed or what they would have worked or liked more. It's top of mind, right? It's a better way to compile and track answers moving forward. And of course, the most important thing is it allows us to act faster. You know, having that real-time conversation with a family who left for whatever reason it may be, we can help solve that problem in a quicker fashion. Questions?
The other thing I'd ask when you do this, and Carolyn said that, let's make sure that we ground all of this around facts. So when we talk about attrition, what percentage of families are leaving? I know Darcy has all that information. We created putting all that together. So I do want to make sure we had that in context, that it's based in fact, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, certainly.
Makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree, John. I think this is extremely helpful, so thanks for putting this together. I think this, again, is a great example of let's not let this go to waste. So, Carolyn, I think if we could get the right task force to break down some of this, and I know exit interviews is something we've all talked about before. I know, Kim, you and I have talked about them, and that's something we should really think about doing and trying to better understand why are people leaving, why are they staying, how can we improve, and this goes hand in hand with some of the academic issues we've talked about recently. So I think this is a good opportunity. Don't let this go to waste. Let's really think about how we make use of this data. So thanks for putting it together.
Indeed.
And perhaps the team could look at what is the most painless and easiest way to do this survey every year, whether it's an email in June or May or whatever. So it becomes just an annual process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions? All right, thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Well done.
All right, let's move on to F3, 23-253, receive a quarterly report from the Westlake Academy Foundation Board. I guess, do you want to, I know they're not here tonight, do you guys want to talk about it?
You want to just table it till they're here?
Well, are they? Can I clarify? Are they going to come to a future meeting, Wade? Because I kind of read into that email that it was up to us to go to their meeting if we wanted answers. So
That's what the email stated that I received, but really the email just stated that they weren't going to be here, and said if you had any immediate questions to their next meeting. I can't remember the date of that next meeting, but we can get that for you.
Sure. I guess we can table it if you want.
no, I agree. We should table it. Look, I know this becomes a contentious issue because there's mutual friends on the respective boards. I know this becomes political, so let me just jump in on this one. Look, I think there are a number of questions that have been floated by town council towards the foundation. I don't think this detracts from the foundation's work. I think they're a phenomenal institution. I think, the whole board is a volunteer board, and I am hugely grateful for everything they do. But I think, when we all got on council, one of the things we wanted to do was try to create a better relationship between all of the affiliates. And I feel like, every time we make a step forward, we somehow take a step backwards on this one. And so I'd like to try to work out some way we can try to get better communication with these quarterly updates. And I'd love to see some financial component integrated into these quarterly updates, just so we just have more fluidity in terms of understanding where, these various affiliates are. And we don't leave it a whole year before we find out through an audit kind of what's going on. I just think it's better practice.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think it's just a communication style issue. They don't, in my estimation, don't want to feel like they're being called to be accountable to this council. But I think they would be happy to partner on, what their mandate is and what we can do to help each other achieve the goal of filling the gap of the, expense of the academy based on what, they're currently doing. So I take it as, I talked to some of the board members offline, and, generically I would say that they're more than willing to discuss how to partner better, but it seems like the way that it was presented was maybe a little bit more like, come and give us your rundown of your financials and how you're doing things, and they probably feel like that's a little bit of an overstep. because it's not super clear in terms of what the accountability is to a separate organization that is being
Actually-
run by volunteers. So,
Yeah.
Janet, could you tell us what our responsibilities are with the foundation?
yeah, it would be helpful, actually.
I don't usually get to talk, so I'm not. So there are really two areas that come into play. One is the function of how the foundation was structured when it was created as a nonprofit organization. It was created as a supporting organization for the town of Westlake. And so the governing documents designate it as an instrumentality of the town. With that said, it is still a separate nonprofit organization. And so their board does have autonomy in terms of the decision-making for their organization, with the understanding that they sit on the board at the will of this council. And this council is responsible for appointing those board members and has the authority to make changes in the board membership at your discretion. That is part of their bylaws and their articles of incorporation. Yes.
With a majority vote, correct?
With the majority vote of this council could make changes in the board membership of the foundation. That's correct. So you have that piece of it in terms of the way, the control that this council has over their board membership. But once that board is in place, then they act as a separate autonomous board for the benefit of their organization. In terms of access to financial records, I think it's important to recognize that as a nonprofit organization in Texas, there is an expectation, because the funds of any nonprofit organization are held for the public trust. There are provisions in the Texas Business Organizations Code that give any member of the public the right to access financial records of a nonprofit organization. So that, and the level of detail, we can look at that separately if that becomes an issue.
But does the audit satisfy that?
The audit is one piece, but that's not the only piece that they would be required to
And what else
provide.
is there then?
I could look up the statute for you and
Well, I
give you the
think
detail.
the
but
problem
it's-
with the audit, I mean,
it's any financial records.
well, yeah, because like the audit was finished. So their year end was August 31st, and the audit I think took 5 months to complete, and then I don't think we even got the audit for another 6 months after that. So that's the advantage of the quarterly financial updates. They don't have to be audited, obviously, but just have a more timely just sense of kind of, what's happening is. Because stepping away from like the legality, well, maybe it is a legal question, but in terms of the board, the town council and or board of trustees role, what would be the expectation in terms of them at least having an understanding about the finances of the foundation, general performance of the foundation? I mean, you mentioned that legally they can either appoint or remove board members. Okay, setting that aside, what is the expectation in terms of oversight?
So that really takes us to the second source of, I guess, authority for this council, which is that the town council in 2011, I want to say, 2011, entered into a memorandum of understanding with the foundation. And the main purpose of entering into that memorandum of understanding was based on the fact that the town council was providing a separate organization, because again, even though they're a supporting organization to you, they are still a separate nonprofit organization. And the nonprofit, the foundation, wanted the support of a staff member that was going to be a town council staff member or academy staff member, depending upon which document you look at. But because of that, you were going to have an individual that was being paid with public funds that was going to be providing services for a nonprofit organization. state law typically would say that you can't do that. We have our Texas Constitution would tell you that it's an unconstitutional gift of public funds to use public support for a private purpose, and nonprofit organizations a private organization. But we have a long-standing tradition of public entities being allowed to use public funds as long to support a private organization, as long as there's a three-part test that is met. And it basically recognizes that not every gift or support to a private organization is necessarily a bad thing for the public entity, as long as the public entity is getting an appropriate return on that investment. And so the three-part test that was developed is that when you are going to be using public support for a private organization, that you have to, number one, identify that it's serving a proper educational purpose, or public purpose, in this case, educational purpose. Number two, that you have sufficient controls in place to ensure that that public purpose is being met. And three, that you have a recognized return benefit to the public entity. And so that memorandum of understanding is the best tool to ensure that you can show how you're meeting that three-step process. And so through that memorandum of understanding, the town made certain commitments to the foundation, and in return, the foundation made certain commitments to the town in terms of establishing those controls so that you could see over time that those things were being met. And so to your question in terms of what are your responsibilities as a council, it would be to ensure, number one, that you're upholding your end of that memorandum in terms of that you're providing the support that you agreed to provide, but also that you're holding the foundation accountable to the commitments that they made, so that you, as the holders of the public trust and the public funds that are being used, can show that it's continually being used for an appropriate purpose.
I agree. And there's kind of two components to the foundation. One is it's a critical funding arm for the operational overheads of the school.
Absolutely.
I mean, 1.2 million out of the 11 million plus budget we just passed here a couple weeks ago. I mean, that's a big component. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is actually the foundational piece. It's, a sense of an endowment, the assets they hold that generates the return. So those are two very important functions. So just to clarify, obviously we have an independent board who's technically appointed by the town, but they have a fiduciary responsibility to the donors, one could argue, right?
Yes.
And they're all volunteers, so just so we're very, very clear about the expectation of, hauling them before the town council. But just going back to your point, I mean, we have an employee of the town, just to clarify, that does work full-time for that foundation, is that correct?
Under the memorandum of understanding, it was supposed to be a split position, so that the position was originated to be half-time for the foundation and half-time for the academy as director of development.
Okay.
With that said, are they governed by the Public Funds Investment Act, or can they do other things? And if so, are they operating under the Public Funds Investment Act?
I couldn't speak to whether or not they are operating under the Public Funds Investment Act. And in all transparency, you can ask more than one person and get more than one answer to that question.
Oh, good.
You can ask more than one lawyer and get more than one answer to that question.
Look, I think that if we need to define exactly practically what we care about and step away from this legal debate on who's required to do what, because they could literally shut that thing down and set up their own 501c3 and not provide anything to the town.
Right, but they wouldn't have the legal rights to operate on the school property and into the school name.
But who does that hurt, David? Does that hurt them, or does that hurt the school?
Any of us want to go?
No, so it's a communication problem. So there's a way to get what you want, and then there's a way to try and force your will as a council member, and I'm telling you that if you go the latter route, I think it's going to end negatively. I think that we should just practically ask ourselves, what is it that we would like to know, and find a way to go partner with them, and I think they'd be very receptive to it. But if you go down this, you have to do this and you have to do that route, I think it's going to. Well, I think there's going to be a negative reaction.
I don't think anyone was saying you have to do this, have to do that. I mean,
What's the concern?
They were just supposed to do a quarterly update.
I know, but what ultimately do you? I mean, I can think of a lot of ways to describe why I want to partner with them. at the top of that list is nowhere to be found on my list is that I'm concerned about what they're doing with the funds or what their, internal processes are. I mean, it'd be nice to know that, but I think it's more of a partnership of, look, we're relying on them to cover, approximately 20% of what the stipend is from the town of the school. It's a complete volunteer organization. Of course.
Other than the executive director who's paid for by the town.
Okay, they would dump that. It's not that meaningful, David. Think about it. It's half a position. Let's be practical.
It's perception, and when an employee of the town doesn't want to show up to a town council meeting, again, it's a perception issue.
Well, I'm just telling you, my opinion is that you're going to catch more flies with honey on this one, and I think we should find a way to partner with them to help them do their job, and then in return for that, ask them for a little bit of transparency. And I think they'd be willing to come in here, but I don't think it's been defined well enough what they're coming in here to answer to, and I think that's probably why
They have
we
slides.
weren't understood.
So they kind of know what they're supposed to be doing.
So, Mayor, can I just jump in here for a second? I mean, this is a broader issue. David, you brought it up. Look, let's kind of step back a second. We have 3, soon to be 4 affiliates of the school. We have the HSC does a fabulous job. We have the foundation. We have WHAC. I can't tell you where they are, but they're holding school funds that we need to address. And then we're starting this new booster club. And those governing documents, Janet, tell me if I'm wrong, are one is an affiliate agreement across all those that have specific things that we're supposed to do, that every affiliate is supposed to do, like provide us financials, have an annual audit and things like that. And there's various stages of those affiliate agreements floating around. And then the second one is the memorandum of understanding. Am I directionally correct there?
The only clarification I would make on that is I'm not aware of any agreements directly with the affiliate organizations other than the memorandum of understanding with the foundation. The other affiliate groups, the expectations are determined by the board policy. And so your current board policy requires that the town council designate a group as an affiliate group, and once they're affiliated that way, there's certain expectations dictated by your policy.
And there are affiliate agreements floating around here with those affiliates. So, Mayor, I would just say on all of this, we just need to clean this up and get this.
I wholeheartly agree. And
especially with the Booster Club coming online, I want to make sure there's no room for misunderstanding. We're, for the will of the school, we'll have the memorandum of understanding, we'll have the affiliate agreement once.
But last year we had issues with the art fund, obviously.
Yep.
And it causes issues, and when those issues erupt, it shakes confidence a little bit, and we got to make sure that the system is always working the way it's supposed to.
Start with formality.
Janet, quick question on the history of the foundation. Did their charter start out as a vehicle of the town, or did it start out as a vehicle for the school, for the Blacksmith Foundation? Before the change was made 5 years ago.
I have to pull it up, but my recollection, and I have it, I can get to it tonight, but my recollection is that it was identified in their articles of incorporation as an instrumentality of the town of Westlake.
Okay. So one of the things I think you guys all bring it up is that we want to bring these affiliates into a more mature relationship because we want to codify expectations. And we want to be able to look residents and families in the eye and say, we're sure we're not losing money irresponsibly, right? And I think this conversation is just part of that bigger picture. And I certainly agree with David that we want to have oversight, and also agree with Victor that we want to have a more positive, collaborative approach to this. But I think it's really important that we do bring these affiliates into a objective, consistent standard, and knowing that it's for the greater good.
I would not read any more they're not here tonight than they're not here tonight, to be honest. With this,
I agree.
We are sensible people. They are sensible people. We will work this out the right way. So I would.
Sure.
I'll leave it at that.
So I guess we'll table this for now, or we'll close it out.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Let's go on to consent agenda. Are there any issues on consent?
Just G2 for me, please.
Is that just a clarification what that is?
It's just a clarification. I just want to understand kind of what prompted the engagement now, and what are we contemplating in terms of payments owed based on work performed so far?
Sure. I don't have the document directly in front of me to talk about payments owed. He did This is just a engagement letter for work that he began back in October. I'm sorry, back in August 1st, when the council met with in closed session, and we talked about identifying bondholders for the Solana PID. He's done some work on that, and he's also done some work also related to discussions there in closed session.
Yeah, I think that's my question, because obviously, yeah, we all met in executive session, and I seem to recall that we were expecting some more feedback from the PID administrator. I think we were determining the scope of refunding some of the sinking funds that we had aggregated or accumulated over time. I think that was a big piece we were still waiting to hear back about. In terms of the legal aspect, Wade, I remember you had brought up that you had approached, I think it was an advisor, maybe it was counsel at some point, and they were looking for a retainer, and we all kind of balked at it. I don't think a specific discussion had been held about actually appointing a legal advisor, because my understanding is identifying the bond holders. I mean, how realistic is that actually going to be?
Well, he's already done a lot of that work. So we've identified the majority bondholder, but that's at 33%, but the rest of that's been farmed out to some others. So he's already been working on that because of the direction that we gave back in that closed session meeting. He is our current bond counsel.
Right.
So this is just a letter of engagement to pay him for the work that we've already been doing, honestly.
But can we quantify what we owe based on the work? Because again, when you say we gave direction, I mean, we can't give direction in executive session. So I'm just trying to clarify before we find out that somehow we've just written a $30,000 check to a law firm. Can we just clarify what the scope is? Because I feel like that, maybe we've invited to executive session, work was performed, and now it's like, oh, by the way, due to these conversations, we got to get formal engagement. I just want to make sure we kind of clarify what the scope of work really is, and what are we expecting out of this?
We can table this. I can get those answers for you, and we can vote on it the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that's my only question, because, I mean, I've read the scope of the engagement, but a lot of it is, attend meetings, draft resolutions, draft legal notices, but I'm not quite sure where this is going to get us. And so I just want to make sure, if we're going to keep pursuing this, that we just, there's just clarity in kind of where we're going, kind of what are the expectations,
Yes,
the
sir.
outcome here.
The majority of the direction that was given to him was to work in conjunction with our PID administrator to come up with the answers that we needed in order to do exactly what you said about the buying down of those assessments. So a lot of that homework had to be done through legal means, and and that's what the engagement letter was to do. But I'll get you an exact number of how much that cost is as of August 1st, and we can put that on the next meeting. We're not in any hurry for this.
Yeah, and likewise, I'm not trying to not move forward with that. I just want to make sure we understand.
Absolutely. No, I understand. I'd want to know the money as well. I just don't have it with me.
Table it or approve it?
Look, I remember that conversation. There was a lot of outcomes from that discussion, and a lot of questions we had unanswered that, in my opinion, we should have had answered to this point. So, regardless how we get it, I think that's still down the path, and I'm very interested to find out when we do get some of the answers from the questions we have.
We'd like to have another joint meeting with P&Z over this topic in November, if at all possible.
I'm always for it. I think I think they work well.
All right. So we're going to table G2 for now? All right.
Yeah.
So can I get a motion to approve consent agenda G1, G3, and G4? Can I get it first?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Can I get a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, let's go on to public hearing, ordinance H1, ordinance 982, conduct a public hearing considering approval of ordinance 982, authorizing a zoning change on lot 1R1-1, block 2, Westlake South Lake Park Addition number 1, from the PD 1-1 zoning district to PD 10 zoning district in order to construct single-family residential development. The subject property contains approximately 32.8 acres and is located between Samsco Road and State Highway 114, just north of the boundary of the city of Southlake. Ron.
So this is a rezoning request to rezone the 32.88 acres you see on the screen here from PD 1-1 to a new PD district that would include 55 single-family detached lots on the property. So a little bit of the history on this property. It's always been undeveloped, save for the 2.5 acre gas well pad site that's on it. The site was drilled little over 10 years ago, but there was never any production on the site. There was a pipeline attached to it or anything. So it's been capped, plugged, and abandoned, and it is no longer a gas well pad site, nor will be. So other than that, the property is undeveloped, largely treed, a lot of topographic change on the property. Large portion of it's within the floodplain, the Marshall Branch that comes out of kind of between Terabella, Glenwick, and then goes across into South Lake. And actually, when it crosses the freeway, it's already in the core property as part of the Lake Grapevine basin. So the developer would like to develop this again for 55 lots. There is a new service road that is coming in on 114. It'll be done in about 6 months, but there will be no access to the service road proposed from the development. All the access will come in off of Sam School Road. So the homes, again, would be single family, but they would have a lot of variation in size. Some would be very small homes, not attached, but in the kind of a style of townhomes. Let me advance the slide and show you. These would be kind of the purple shaded homes on the conceptual site plan that is shown here. And then the others would be larger estate style homes in the development. So in terms of open space, the developer is proposing 44.6% open space. You can see the open space areas on the plan. There's a lot of buffering from 114, and that's a minimum 125-foot buffer that would just be preserved in place open space, but would also include additional tree plantings on the portion of the development, kind of looking at the plan, the north point of the development. That's the part when you drive by on 114, you can kind of see the edge of the gas pad site from the road. So there would be some additional trees planted there to screen the development from the highway. And this is one of the conditions of the Planning and Zoning Commission as they were considering this, is to provide additional buffering for the development and screening from Highway 114. You also see the floodplain to the north, which provides the buffer between the Solana Plaza development and the proposed development. The developer had originally proposed building a pedestrian bridge that would link these two developments together, which is still possible. However, that's been scaled back because there's a lot of engineering and working with the property owners in Solana to make that happen. Possibly there could be an opportunity for that with the new owner of the Marriott Hotel site. And then we have a 50-foot buffer along Sam School Road that is proposed as well. The streets would be gated. There'd be a gate off of Sam School, and the road going into the development would line up with the road going into Terabella. And that would also provide an opportunity to improve the remainder of the road where it's not improved there on Sam School, and also provide some type of entry feature coming from South Lake into West Lake. There is parkland dedication required for the development. That is, I believe it's 1.6 acres. There is an existing park across the street south of Lifetime that was dedicated as part of the Knolls that ties into both the conservation area that was dedicated as part of the Knolls and also ties into the trail that connects to Glenwick Park. So staff recommends...
You're talking about that hill.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about the hill?
Yes, sir. The hill.
Yeah. So I think that, funnily enough, was like one of the first meetings I ever attended publicly, was to talk about that. And I remember we started to discuss the funding. I think there were 3 phases to developing that out. And my understanding from the time was the first phase was effectively covered by Lifetime Fitness, and I think another development, maybe it was the Knolls. Can you just tell us I know it's not on the agenda, hopefully, can you just tell us what's happening with that public park? Because I don't think we've heard anything.
So as part of an agreement with Lifetime Fitness, the money that they were going to apply toward improvements in the park was going to be based strictly off of the total tree mitigation required for the site. In working with Lifetime, what we're trying to do is to ensure there's adequate buffering between Lifetime and the Knolls property next door. So it looks like a lot of that money is actually going to go into additional trees planted between the Lifetime site.
No park development.
So, and it wasn't much to begin with in terms of, it was a couple of $100,000 at the most to apply to that park. So it would have required more money from other funding sources to finish out any improvements. Okay. It's just that those improvements were never fully identified as to what that might be on the park, other than just landscaping. So any parkland dedication fees collected as part of this development could be applied directly toward that park or just to any park in town.
And with that would be agreed in the economic development agreement that would occur later? Is that where we would negotiate that point?
Specifically, the development agreement.
The development agreement?
And what we need to come up with is a specific, what that fee amount is.
See, Wade, it goes back, I guess, to our discussion earlier about this, forward-looking comprehensive plan for the town, because, again, we've only been talking about Villaggio, this development, you've brought up the Knolls, but there seems to be a lot of conceding of public parklands, right, and taking fees in lieu of. And so I just think we need to be very conscious. And that's why when you mention, but there's one across the street, the reality is, apparently we never secured the funding for it. So I just want to make sure council's kind of cognizant of this as we're thinking it through.
Yeah, and just to chime in, David, I know that P&Z's already approved this, and they reduced the number of homes on this development, but I'm still a little hesitant because the density is much higher than our comprehensive plan had hoped to be 1 house per acre.
Yeah, and it's a great question, because that's the one, Ron, I was going to ask you. I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead of your presentation. The opening rubric talks about the square footage of 3,750 to 17,598, but I think when you look at the descriptions later on, the reality is we're talking about minimum lot size of 3,200 square feet up to maybe 10,000 for the larger lot homes.
And also density of 1.67, which is the highest in Westlake.
Exactly. But just on the square footage for each of these townhome units, I know technically Entrada zoned for smaller home lots, but in reality, how would this compare to Knolls or Entrada, for example?
So as far as gross density, only Entrada has a higher gross residential density than what the development is proposing. Although I will note that PD 35A, which is the Front 44 property, is entitled for 275 attached or detached units, which if that was to be exercised, we're only talking 44 acres. So you're about 4 units per acre there if Hillwood ever did come in with a plan to develop that, which I don't think they are going to. But there are other instances in town that have not been developed yet that could also exceed this density. And you're right about the comprehensive plan, though. While the comp plan does talk about a max density of 1 unit per acre in the pastoral areas, it never really defines that in the transitional areas, and we have a lot of room for further defining and sharpening what that recommendation is if we were to update the comprehensive plan moving forward, because it's a huge gap between the build-out population, what you could actually build based on the entitlements.
Yeah, because I think it's back here. I think it's on page 9 of this sort of staff report. It says the comprehensive plan estimates that the total build-out population for Westlake will be 6,766 people. It says this is based on a total build-out housing count of 2,376 units. Based on current residential entitlements allowed by both zoning and the developability of land, there are currently only 2,001 possible housing units at build-out, leaving a current surplus of 375. This will be fascinating to burrow into when we look into this in more detail, because I don't understand how this breaks out or where this is scheduled for. But I think, having looked at the proposed plan, the development is beautiful. I mean, it really is high quality. It looks really, really attractive. It's just from the naive sort of high level perspective, it is that density question. Mm-hmm. And it's creating that precedent of at what point do we completely break away, from single family, acre lot homes and keep allowing for this higher density. It's just an observation. I'm not.
Well, I think there were 2 pieces with the density that we had discussed in the comp plan, and that was 1, the cost of services, right? And then 2, the impact on Westlake Academy. And so my concern here is that in Entrada we allowed higher density just because we had the trade-off for commercial and retail, but that's not quite the case in this development. So I'm just hesitant about this, and this is no disrespect to P&Z. I know they approved it. I'd love to hear some of their thoughts.
And there was a question of this supporting the commercial at the Solana right there to the north. So I don't know if there's vacancy there. I don't know enough about it. I know the Marriott's just changed hands. I know there's office buildings there. But is there other capacity for commercial that this would theoretically support, or is that kind of
There is additional
Built
lease
out.
space that could be filled in the
Okay.
Solana,
But not a lot.
but I would say last time we checked, it's around 40%, I believe.
There's also supposed to be 4 restaurants in the new hotel, like the way they're briefing it, right?
So, look, I mean, the big unknown here, I think, in town is probably the Circle T. I mean, would that be a fair observation in terms of future developability? Is that kind of the big unknown?
I think it's more unknown to the town than it is to Hillwood.
Of course. But I'm just, so I guess, let me be more specific then. So when we're talking about a potential build out of 2,376 units, what are the assumptions being made for those
So
unknowns?
that's an excellent question. Most cities will base that assumption on physical capacity to build out based on a density that is determined as part of the planning process through feedback and working with stakeholders and residents. In Westlake's comprehensive plan, that number is strictly based on zoning entitlements. Most comp plans don't do that. Ours did, and part of that reason for that was to work with Hillwood, because clearly the Circle T PDs have been in place since the 90s, and Hillwood doesn't want those to be altered or touched. And so I think as part of the comprehensive plan discussion, they very much wanted to lock those entitlements in, and so the comp plan was kind of molded around those entitlements. There's another way to do it, and you can use other methodologies, and I think if we were to amend the comprehensive plan, we'd want to explore those other methodologies.
Let me ask you this. I mean, let's just pretend that 2,376 ultimate units in town was our goal, just for argument's sake. Does approving, I know we're only approving the zoning tonight, right? That's the question. It's not
Right.
the actual. But if they did go ahead with these 55 units, would that increase this future predicted number, or does it kind of fit inside of that?
It fits inside of it, and so we're at, say, 316. So basically what I'm saying is there's a bonus of 316 units that falls below, so you're looking at 316 below the
That
total
nobody's
build-out.
applied for. Is that what you're saying? They just
That's correct.
Okay.
Because that number, that 2376 number, was based on zoning entitlements.
But
So-
was this number known back when these estimates were being made? The 2,376. Did we know 55 units were potentially going to come here, or is it just we assumed it based on?
So that was based on, so the problem with basing it on zoning entitlements is they had to assume for areas that are zoned straight, like R1, R2, how many homes could you fit in an R1 zoned area? Well, that
Yeah.
included the Lee property, which is zoned R1. Well, there's not going to be any residential
Okay.
on the Lee property. So
Oh,
it
I see.
overshot
Okay.
the total projected build out
Okay.
based on the way that was determined.
Okay. Yeah. So wait, I think this would be a great one for us to delve into more deeply when we look at this future planning. So let me ask you this, just for expediency, in terms of what's being asked tonight, we're being asked to vote on the zoning, and that's converting this from what would have been commercial to residential.
Yes, sir.
Is assuming we were to approve this, would there still be scope to revisit densities, or what could theoretically still change even though this zoning was approved tonight?
Well, if this gets approved as it's written in the ordinance, then they have entitlement to develop it based on what this plan shows, and then with all
Got
as long as they meet all the other conditions as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Coffey, the chair of the P&Z, is here as well, and he can kind of.
I came tonight so I could answer some questions just about planning and zoning and what we went through to approve this. I just want to also make one comment about Westlake Academy. Currently, less than 50% of the students at Westlake Academy actually live in Westlake. So I keep hearing about concern over students and us over-committing to Westlake Academy, having too many people, too much density in the town. Currently today, less than 50% of the students live in Westlake.
Right, right. I do know that. 2 years ago, though, we had 2 grades at the academy that were at risk of a wait list.
Okay.
So just want to keep that in mind.
No, and also to Anna's point, I mean, you know, if we're 45% of residents taking up spots at Westlake, we're only about a quarter built out based on these estimates. Because we're, 650 homes out of 2,376, so.
So I think what we've been doing, though, is we've been allowing other students to come in to fill out the class sizes that we have.
Right.
So at any rate, just from a P&Z perspective, This particular development came before us, I want to say 3 times. One was unofficial, just to feel us out for how we would receive it. Twice it was brought to us officially. Matter of fact, this dates back to when Victor was the Planning and Zoning Chairman. So he and I have been directly involved in this project for a long time. P&Z had concerns about density, lot size, overflow parking, the size of the roadways in the community, the steep grade of this particular site, and the extensive use of retaining walls, under road utilities, which didn't work very well in South Lake, the setback from the freeway, and then the viewing corridors from the freeway. Over the course of several months, the applicant worked with us and continuously refined the model. When it originally came before us, if I'm remembering correctly, it was roughly 96 units at that time. It's now come down to 55. And it was finally unanimously approved by Planning and Zoning. For those of you who know the members, there are some pretty difficult members to get to yes on a project like this. The area where there's the extreme density is actually on top of that flat pad area. It's actually a really nice use of what is a difficult piece of property. The roads are wider than are typically found in order to make sure that we had access for, call it fire life safety. The yellow lots are on average, I don't want to misquote, but twice the size of the lots in the Knolls. The lots in the Knolls are roughly 9,000, Ron, where are you? To 11,000 square feet. These are 17,000 square feet. The master developer of this project, well known around the country for producing just some really beautiful neighborhoods that blend in with the topography and the area. Being a difficult piece of property, we at Planning and Zoning actually were supportive of this project in its current state as being a very good use of this particular piece of property. I think Ron's done some studies as far as tax, what the tax value of this income stream would be from these homes versus if this was a commercial property. We actually do better with this particular piece of property in this format and fashion. So happy to answer any other questions. This was one that came before us multiple times over probably, Victor, how long have you been here? It has to be at least 6 months. And so I think I came tonight just to make sure that I was here to answer any questions, because this is one
I'm glad you're here. Yeah.
that has gone through a great deal of change.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that a little bit. I mean, I do think it's a tough piece of property in general. It's kind of wedged in there in a difficult spot. It's tough to do anything up against the freeway like that, so I do think it's an elegant solution. And just in terms of having development partners, Frank and his team have proven to me that there really isn't a better resi development partner in the country based on the product that they put in the ground and the reputation and the retention of home values over time in their developments, because they do pay attention to the little stuff that over time can make a nice development kind of start to look cheap. And these guys really do put in a lot of extra time and effort into the design components and the scale. I've been very impressed with them. I get, David, your comments are noted and important, but I think the benefits here outweigh the potential costs to the concentration of residential and any risk to the academy in terms of overstacking resi. But yeah, I also want to note that to deny something like this because we as a town haven't figured out our conceptual plan and gotten comfortable with it is kind of a wrong message. Notwithstanding the risks of approving something like this without having it, I do recognize that there are some risks. But I'm in favor.
I really appreciate you coming tonight. I agree with Vic that a lot of the questions that we have as council for the holistic planning for the town and the school have to be addressed in a wider conversation above this development. So.
And we're very supportive of looking at that master plan and trying to
I think
revamp it
there's
as
a
well.
lot of people in town who didn't realize that just 2 years ago we had 2 different grades at Westlake Academy that were at risk of having a lottery for residents. And it has to do with the more holistic approach that we, accept students through the lottery system every year.
2 follow-up questions. And I agree, I don't think it's high-risk requests, honestly, and I think working more closely with P&Z has been a benefit, so I'm glad we're having these conversations. Just briefly on the minimum design spec, what's this in keeping with? I mean, again, I've read through some of it's not as high a standard as some of the developments, but what is it in keeping with in terms of the design specifications that are being sought?
So it's consistent with the building quality manual that this was done as an implementation piece of the last comprehensive plan update. It was approved in 2018.
Yeah.
And it gets into minimum building material.
Right. So
types,
no
roof
major
types.
concessions are being made. I mean, couldn't see any that were...
Not on the design side, no,
Okay.
sir.
And then my other question was just on the guest parking, because it referred to this Exhibit C, but I could never find it. What is the plan for the... Yes, I just want to... Because I know that we had parking come up the other week, and I just want to be conscious that there's not an on-street request suddenly coming our way.
So where you see the purple townhome lot, or the smallest lots on the eastern portion of the development,
Yeah.
you can see looks like nooks across the roadway there. That's actual guest parking
Oh, over by the 114?
spaces.
Is that in the green?
Up against
Yeah.
the green buffer there, yeah.
Gotcha, okay. That's good.
Which is where you would need it the most, just because there's very little space to park over there. But the streets will be wide enough to handle on.
So the lowest priced unit in this neighborhood is roughly...
So what the developer mentioned in their materials they submitted was home starting at 1.2 million.
And that's for the townhomes, or the brownstones, or wherever those things are.
That's what I would assume.
Because that's probably where Entrada is, would you say?
And then the upper end for this
Yes.
is what
Yeah.
roughly what price point? Okay.
And just to wrap up, so the P&Z did vote on this at the last meeting, then recommended approval 5-0 with the conditions that you've got on the ordinance as well. So the developer is here, though, and has a presentation that they'd like to show as well to the council.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the Town Council. My name is Curtis Young with the Sage Group, and I'm pleased to be in front of you today to talk about this. Frank and Adam from Lovett Commercial are here, as well as our civil engineer. If you have any detailed questions on that, we'd be happy to answer any of those as we go along. While they're setting up the presentation, appreciate the chairman of the P&Z coming and talking about the process that we went through them. This has been a rewarding process for us to get the kind of input that we have got along the way here, and really feel that it's helped the project, and we're hopeful you feel the same way. The project's going to be called Solana Hills, and it includes a lot of things within the project, but primarily single-family detached homes. None of these are attached. Private streets, guardhouse at the front, publicly accessible natural areas. There was some discussion about park before. This will be publicly accessible, and there's a great floodplain area in there that people will be able to walk down and enjoy. Everyone, not just people in this particular development. So we really feel that this is going to be something that will develop and as an open space area that the whole town can enjoy. HOA operated and maintained amenities, open space. drainage infrastructure, and the pedestrian trail network that we talked about. Here's the property that Ron pointed out. It's, whenever we do this, we try to really consider the property. What are the characteristics of the property that ought to lead us to how the development is going to be proposed and used? And certainly location is one of them. It's a piece of property right on the freeway, much like Entrada is. So that's a consideration that we have to take into account. It's on two boundaries. It's boundary with South Lake, which the development to the south of us, South Lake Meadows, is a much different vision than what we are proposing here. And of course, to the north is the plaza at Solana, which we spent a lot of time there. And yes, maybe only 40% or whatever is vacant, but in my estimation, it needs customers. And I still think that that's a great central commercial gathering spot and area for the town of Westlake. And, we thought that one of the big factors of this particular development was that we could provide customers within walking distance, closest of any of the residents of Westlake to that, and that it would help that commercial center proceed. The other thing I'd like to point out is that years ago there was, when everyone was drilling for gas wells around here, this was leased out long before our ownership, and a big road was put in and a big gas pad was constructed, and of course all the trees were taken out where that was, and they did drill the well, but there was never a pipeline put in this direction, and I don't think they had very good production estimates anyway, so they decided it wasn't worthy to go forward, so they capped the well, and this property owner has spent a considerable amount of money buying those rights away from them, so there would never be a issue in the future about that. So that's the story on the gas well, but what it leaves us with is a flat piece of property without any trees on it. So when you're looking at this from a planning point of view, you say, well, there's a unique opportunity in Westlake. Although there's a significant amount of topographic change on this property in general, about 80 feet from the very top down to the creek, less than that in the development areas. Nonetheless, this is an area that's pretty much flat, and I think it gives us an opportunity to do something that's unique and doesn't have to worry about the slopes and those kinds of things. So that was one of the early things that we decided to look at and take into our consideration of this. And we've been thinking about this for, I hate to say it, over 3 years. It's been a long time, and part of that process was determining just internally what we thought was the best thing for this property. It's obviously a visible piece of property for the town of Westlake. We fully understand how important this property is to the town of Westlake, and we wanted to make sure that the final solution that we propose to you is something that it's defensible and is going to be an extremely high-quality development for Westlake, which we understand that's your standards, no question about it.
Do you guys kind of know what you need to do
I'm
here?
okay to vote.
I think we're ready to vote.
I do have a question, though, Mayor. So you talked about the mineral rights, so there won't be drilling. Do we know who owns the mineral rights in it?
They were. I can give you an answer
Okay,
later.
just a side note. So thank you for covering that.
I've got more, but if you want to vote, I never want to get in the way.
All right. Let's open up to a public hearing. Any comments? Any concerns? Going once, going twice. Closing the public hearing. All in favor? Can I get a motion to approve ordinance 982?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No opposed? Motion carries. All right, thanks.
All done.
All right.
Thank you.
You want to take a quick break here before we get to the next round here? We'll take a 5-minute break here, and then we'll roll into the I3. All right?